I didn't get all of that, but that was about what can change or should change in the structures to stop this happening again. Can that happen?
Well, I suppose that is actually an interesting one, and I know Peter has set out a very cogent argument around the need for reform. Review and reform are actually built into the Good Friday Agreement as part of the executive, and that's something that we would also welcome. Like, I mean, any kind of thing that's in existence, that length of claim, clearly would benefit from reform. It's little known that actually, were the Assembly to collapse, if it gets going on Saturday and Monday, and if it was to come down again, there is actually a new safeguard was put in at the time of the New Decade New Approach, the last restoration, whereby a party who wished to withdraw could do that. The rest of the parties could continue on for a 6-month period. So that's one disincentive to parties to walk away lately. In terms of the underpinning part of the question around the conflict, that's, I suppose, something that we need to be more conscious of, because we will have conflict. We have a contested past. We have two different narratives of the past. We share the same space, and we are a kind of a mandatory coalition of very opposites. However, my experience as an MLA has been that actually that's not the bit that's focused on. The bit that gets focused on is doing the work, doing what we know, because while we have a contested past, as I mentioned previously, we have the exact same needs, the exact same challenges. We all of those things going on in our communities with drugs. We have things going on with antisocial behaviour. We have issues around health. We have domiciliary care packages not available to get our relatives and our loved ones out of hospital. So I think working together in itself is reconciliatory over time. And I think we should actually, despite it being totally unsatisfactory the way things are going, we should recognise where we are now compared to the journey we have come from, and the progress that's been made there. And I think we need to give each other a bit of space to recognise that we may never agree on the past, but what we can do is agree that our duty is to work for the future and to create a better future for all of us and for all of you.
That's very bright, Colm. Okay, that's a nice shiny picture. What do you say to those who say, come on, we've had 25 years since the Good Friday Agreement and we're almost coming up on 10 years of no active government of those 25? Yeah. You know, this is difficult, what they're asking, isn't it?
It is difficult, and it's difficult, and it's complex, and it's a part of the outworkings of a very long 30-year conflict. It's incumbent on us all to address those differences. There was a very complicated set of structures put in place to address that, and those should evolve, they should grow, but they should also continue to recognise the fact that there are still different identities. There are still people with different ambitions in terms of the constitutional. I would like to see a united Ireland. I believe my work in the Assembly every day is Republican in that sense, and that working together with people will lead us naturally towards more unity. But we certainly don't want to see, and I have to say, there's a fundamental difference between the period of time with the RHI scandal. That was a massive scandal which had to be addressed, and then it led, and we had actually done a deal within a number of months, 6 or 12 months of that collapse, but the DUP at the last moment, over a period of a weekend, walked away from that deal, and there was a further 2 years. This particular collapse, what we would say is particularly regrettable, is that the Assembly cannot or could not have done anything about the issues that the DUP were raising. It remains to be seen how that all works out. But what we were saying was those issues can be addressed between ourselves, talking about what the problems are, but they will be addressed via the British government and the European Union as a result of Brexit. Let's us continue to do our work here that we're tasked with doing. So that's a regrettable bit. But hopefully that's one change now that'll be a disincentive to any party, including my own, to walk away without good cause. And I hope that we learn from that, and I hope people holding us to account in rooms like this and saying we want better. Absolutely, and we should be delivering better.
Mm-hmm. Peter, does Alliance have a plan to see some systemic change, or what are you guys saying?
Yeah, I mean, we've been making the case for a while now to the British and Irish government in terms of reform of the institutions. I've mentioned there about how I voted for a speaker on the 7 occasions that there's been a recall. At each one of those recalls, there's been, not to get technical, but it's been to discuss a motion So I think public sector strikes, various other issues that have been significant. But the first item that there is, so you get the opportunity to put your stalls forward in terms of the motion, and one person can speak or others can speak, whichever it is. But the first thing that actually has to happen is the election of the speaker. So each time we've had Patsy McGlone and Mike Nesbitt put forward as potential speakers. Everyone has their views on it. I've said yes, but each time my vote, despite being cast, hasn't actually been factored into the thing. So I think it's essential that we change that, because if we don't change that, we don't change anything. So yeah, that's essential to change it, because it's in the best interest of government here in Northern Ireland.
And any comeback down from that table? We can move on. That's all right.
100%. And while I was thinking about what I would say there, I thought I've had that conversation before with friends. Even just last night, we met as a party to discuss next steps for us, the current state of play for our members, let them know what's been going on behind the scenes in terms of the conversations, because we think it's really important that we engage with our membership. And I was thinking about that as a comment that I could say, but it just gets quite technical. Fundamentally, you need to reform the system if faced with that scenario. We don't designate as unionists, we don't designate as nationalists. I was saying to your friend last night, I'm called a unionist and a nationalist every single day, because some people just can't wrap their heads around the fact that I just don't, it doesn't drive me, to be honest. I want to focus on the here and now, the issues that we're hopefully going to talk about today. Yeah, the Good Friday Agreement was a really important first step, but it wasn't the last step. So 25 years later, I think they need a refresh in terms of this minor tweak to ensure that government can't be collapsed, because I think the Northern Ireland that we have today doesn't reflect the Northern Ireland that we have in terms of our political institutions.